Black Queen on the Red King, Miss...
Solitaire.
Solitaire arrives in Live and Let Die like a question in a silk dress. An erotic dare in a supernatural body. She doesn't storm the screen, she glides. She is announced by ritual, by fear, by prophecy, by Kananga's empire of smoke, drums, and myth. Before we ever really know her, we know what she represents. Purity, power, danger, mysticism, and control. All wrapped in one immaculate, untouchable figure. That alone makes her one of the strangest Bond women in the entire franchise. On the surface, Solitaire is the ultimate passive icon, a voodoo high priestess bound by a taboo that says her virginity is the source of her clairvoyance. But that premise is already doing something much more interesting than the film sometimes admits. Her body isn't just desired, and trust me, it definitely is desired by countless amounts of people. Her body is also politicized. It's monetized. It is weaponized. In Kananga's world, her purity isn't sacred. It's infrastructure. So is she a prisoner? Absolutely. She lives in a golden cage built from superstition and Kananga's iron will. The locals fear her, revere her, and avoid her all at once. Kananga controls her, not because he loves her, but because she's useful, not because he loves her, but because he's perversely fixated on her virginity. Her gift is less divine insight and more psychological theater. A mystical interface that keeps San Monique under his thumb. And yet, here's where it gets messy and fascinating. Solitaire isn't just a victim, she's also a priestess. The film bathes her in ritual, in candlelight, in mystery. She isn't merely ornamental. She's central to the occult architecture of Kananga's operation. Without her, the myth collapses. Without her, the fear loses its face. In that sense, she holds real symbolic power, even if it's tightly restricted by men who want to own it or possess it. Or defile it. Solitaire is an unbelievably captivating woman, devastatingly hot. Oh my god. Then James Bond arrives, grinning like a shark in a tuxedo, and immediately decides that this entire system, the voodoo, the tarot, the myth, is nonsense. Where Kananga mystifies, Bond demystifies. Where Kananga enthrones Solitaire, Bond seduces her out of the spell. Is this liberation, or is it just a transfer of control? Because the moment Bond sleeps with Solitaire, her powers vanish, which is both narratively convenient and thematically thorny. I always get a major kick out of how Bond tricks Solitaire here. On one level, it can be read as emancipation. She is freed from a life of ritual imprisonment. On another, more cynical level, she simply moves from one man's possession to another's. Kananga's mystical authority gives way to Bond's colonial cool. The cage changes shape, but is it really gone? That tension is what makes Solitaire so compelling. She exists at the intersection of three roles that never fully resolve. It keeps her mystery enduring, decades after the film itself. Prisoner of myth and patriarchy, priestess of a dark, seductive belief system. Pawn in a larger game between two powerful men. There's a larger dimension to all this. Outside of the film itself is where Solitaire truly flexes her might. She is ridiculously sexy, like so hot that it should be a crime. Solitaire becomes a prisoner of fantasy. We keep her in our fantasies. Considering Bond is a series most guys fall in love with when they're in their teens, she becomes a prisoner of adolescent fantasies. But that's not putting respect on the experience of Solitaire or fantasy itself. No, in a bigger way, she becomes the priestess of teenage sexual obsessions, an erotic, esoteric entry point into the narrative systems of sexual attraction. Solitaire becomes a fantasy we keep always. The dream of her acts as a pawn in a much bigger game of imagination. Solitaire, the high priestess of audience desire. What's remarkable and what Jane Seymour quietly sells is that Solitaire feels like a real person caught between all this. She is vulnerable without being pathetic, sensual without being trivial, and mystified by Bond even as she is drawn to him. Her curiosity feels human. Her fall from divine icon to flesh and blood woman is tragic, thrilling, and a little heartbreaking, but most of all, it compels Bond to protect her. It compels us as viewers to feel protective of her. We want to keep Solitaire safe. She puts the dream in Dream Woman. In a franchise full of assassins, spies, and megalomaniacs, Solitaire is something rare. A living symbol who becomes a woman before our eyes. She's the embodiment of mysticism turned mortal, of power that dissolves the moment it's touched, of the complicated price of freedom in a world ruled by men like Kananga and 007. So which is she? Prisoner? Yes. Priestess? Without question. Pawn? Painfully, yes. But she is also more than all of that. A haunting figure who burns in the memory like sage after the ritual has ended. In Live and Let Die, Solitaire isn't just part of the story. She's the spell. Fills my mind with jump ropes and slit wrists. Erotic dares to run out the spirits. Thanks for watching. I'm the rejected Bond villain.